All right. While we work on getting WAF up here, thank you guys so much. We are live. This is being recorded, so fret not if you got to hop out later. But in 30 minutes, Trevor, the founder of Pizza Ninjas, a MVHQ member, and a Bitcoin OG, is going to be joining us to talk about runes, their significance, and just an overview of what we might be seeing in coming months. But right now, for the first 30 minutes, we're going to have a state of the market specific to ordinals with WAF and myself. We're just going to kind of go through some projects that are popping off. We'll probably talk about runes still a little bit between the two of us, maybe BRC20s a bit since that shit has been going off, and so much more. But just want to make sure we can try and get WAF all set up here. He still seems to be getting rugged. WAF, keep troubleshooting away. I'm just going to start going through some collections on Magic Eden and just giving some commentary on that in the meantime. Looks like WAF just left the chat, so I'm sure he'll be back. But yeah, we can just go through here. As we lead into the halving, we definitely see that rune stones are holding strong, which is pretty surprising. You can also see that a lot of rune projects are still holding their floors, even stuff like RSIC. Now, the new updated delivery date for the halving, I believe, is going to be evening time of April 19th, as opposed to the expected 20th. So we really are only 4 days away, and it is crazy to see these projects holding floors like these. There's definitely a lot of allegations or speculation that these rune projects are going to deliver with the ordinals themselves post halving. So definitely going to be interesting to see what the prices look like. And certainly something I want to discuss with Trevor as well as WAF is just where we expect the prices of ordinals as a whole to go post halving. I'm personally pretty convicted that we're going to see a dump in ordinals following the halving just due to extreme gas on the network, a lot of congestion. Usually, when that kind of stuff happens, at least we've seen on other chains, projects tend to tumble a little bit as liquidity dries up. Certainly for lower cap projects where it's not going to make sense if the gas goes up to 0.003 Bitcoin be buying stuff that's 0.005 Bitcoin. So I'd imagine projects like Pizza Runes, those might get tossed a little bit in favor of some more expensive projects. But even then, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a pullback across the board. But we've been seeing a feverish weekend. Obviously, there's been a lot of war rumors and war threat that have been facing the cryptocurrency space as a whole. Bitcoin on a bit of a pullback today, as well as ordinals, but still have collections holding pretty strong. The leaders, Bitcoin puppets, as well as node monkeys, still holding above the zero point 0.4 range pretty solidly. So ordinals still definitely getting a lot of volume and a lot of love from different people. And let me just take a quick check to see. WAF, how you doing? Can you?
GM, can you hear me?
There we go.
All
All
right.
right. Yes.
It's getting rugged on my laptop, so I switched to the phone while I do a restart. But your first question to me, very excited about everything that's going on. It's been a journey to get to the week before the halving. We went through like layer 2 mania, and now it's pretty much runes all day, every day. And I think we're going to be talking about this for the next 2 weeks at least before we get back to anything else.
Yeah. 100%. It really is going to be all eyes on runes, and there you go. I can hear you rebooting in the background. It's going to be pretty exciting to see. This is something that has been hyped for months and months. And I'm really excited to see the whales that come into the space. I think something that's been top of my mind is what happens to the price of Bitcoin as a result of runes dropping. I'd have to imagine that a lot of money is going to be rotating into there. You at the same exact time have Merlin Chain unlocking and uncapping about $4 billion worth of assets. So you have to imagine a ton of that liquidity is going to be going back into ordinals or back into runes. But just on top of that, oh my God, network congestion is like top of mind. I'm just really curious, Waf, like in your thoughts, how have you sort of factored in the correlation of Bitcoin pricing, these assets freeing up, runes dropping, and a bunch of people trying to use the network all at once?
There's too many variables at play to really make a decision on what's going to happen. So you just have to play out like a bunch of scenarios in your head. I mean, you're going to have people front running the traffic on L1s and maybe getting in on ordinals, or you're going to have people who are just going to play on layer 2, but then will the layer 2 traffic like equal layer 1? And then you're going to have You're gonna have people who are gonna play runes 100%. Like you're gonna have whales playing that game, trying to get some early inscriptions on rune. You're gonna have collections trying to deploy a token early. You're gonna have people just kind of sitting back with their nodes, waiting for deployments and trying to mint as quick as possible. There's gonna be so many ways to play this. I just think you have to be agile and flexible and kind of just see what's the best play at that moment.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well said. And I think there really will be a lot of opportunities for people who stick around. A shout that I've been having just for the people listening in is I would try to secure some Bitcoin sooner than later. Just something to consider is we know pretty confidently that network traffic is going to go crazy post halving, right? All those funds are unlocking, but beyond that, you have a bunch of people who are going to be trying to etch runes. They're going to be trying to mint runes. So with all of that going on, it's going to just get more and more expensive to buy Bitcoin or have any sort of transaction on the network. So as we get closer and closer to the halving, I would try to get your liquidity in order now. Try to set up those different wallets. If you're trying to set up a node, definitely get that squared up and troubleshot ahead of time. Because once we switch over to that halving and the fees go up, like that's kind of it, right? We're going to be in a completely new game, a new territory, probably fewer people available to troubleshoot and handhold. So like this is the crunch time, and I would definitely be looking to lock in this time frame.
Agree 100%. Get that node running if you're going that route. Practice doing some inscriptions. Get your UTXOs ready to go. I think we're looking at a having around Friday night going into Saturday around midnight Eastern Standard Time. So rest up, get ready for that. It's gonna be crazy. I expect to see a ton of deployments within that first hour. We're gonna see crazy stuff happening in the mempool. You're gonna see potentially 1 minute blocks getting mined, maybe even ones that take an hour. It's gonna be pretty much total pandemonium.
100%. And great call on the different block speeds there. So for people who are unaware, you know, the average user has to put a lot of faith in the actual Bitcoin miners. And there's people who are just fully dedicated to mining these things, have multi-million dollar rigs and set up to mine these blocks. And there's a lot of coordination. We've heard Trevor talk about this, and he could speak more on this in 20 minutes. But people are already trying to bribe miners in order to get access to that first block so they can etch their runes in, or do whatever they're trying to do on the first block of the halving. And they're offering up to millions of dollars to do this. So if you're someone who's running a rig, you could be incentivized to accept, hundreds of transactions very quickly and try in attempt to accelerate the blocks and make sure that you're the first person to process that block at the halving. Could also go the other direction where they're prolonging it for the same purposes where they're just trying to get it. But whatever the reason, it is going to be a hotly contested block, a lot of activity going on that. So you definitely want to be locked into your seat and just be ready to strike. It definitely makes sense to just be well rested, have some caffeine nearby, have some snacks nearby, and have your liquidity on hand. Like most importantly, because once it goes live, like you're gonna want to be there and you're not gonna want to miss it. So Waf, going into the halving, are there any kind of runes or symbols, names in general that are sort of standing out to you in terms of, how you're approaching to play this, things that you have your eyes glued on? I'm very curious if there's stuff you've been hearing about. You're usually well glued into the alpha.
Sorry, Ross. I got rugged for the last 30 seconds. I heard the beginning part of your question about runes, but I didn't hear the second part.
No worries. Just want to know if you have your eyes or ears glued to anything in terms of stuff that you're looking at for runes specifically post halving, just, names you might be looking at or any kind of strategies or plays you've got queued up.
Well, I think as far as the pre runes that we have already, like the rune pups and some of these other miners, the R6, the rune stones, I think we have time to wait on those. So those I'm just holding. It'll be interesting to see what the price action is on those. If they go up more, if they go up less, I think it's probably be dependent on what actually gets deployed first. I'm just gonna be looking for memeable, um, call it names of tokens. So if someone etches, magic internet money or world, puppets world peace or something like that, I'm gonna be all over those. Anything that's memeable. If I could find some Twitter or any social media engagements on a particular rune token deployment, I'll be searching for that. Otherwise, I'll be checking the mempool, checking what's out there on Ordinals, seeing what's getting inscribed, and I'm just gonna kind of play it on the fly because I don't really know what project is out there that's already kind of made a statement that they're gonna go for something early. I don't think anyone has yet. So I'm just gonna keep my eye out on everything. Just check all, like I said, the ordinals.com, check for inscriptions, check the mempool for the sats, and secondarily just kind of watch those pre-mine runes to see how they're doing. Because again, if we have some successful runes that drop before them, and then we're thinking these pre runes are going to be bigger, that could really pump the price as well. So it could really go either way. So I think you just have to really monitor everything, like kind of stop what you're doing, and you just got to be on it for these next 7 days.
Yeah,
I have
really well said there, WAF.
a question about
Go
that
ahead.
though. Sorry, Ross, not to throw it off, but pre-mined runes, right? That's one thing I've been really. I think a lot of people are kind of confused on how that is, how it's going to work. Like they haven't really mined any runes yet. So do we have to still wait for them to etch them all before they airdrop them, or are they just going to wait for gas to calm down and they already have runes ready, and then they're going to airdrop them? Because right now, as I understand it, nobody has any runes ready. So don't they still have to etch them after the
Yeah,
halving either way?
yeah, absolutely. Because right now it's pretty much an IOU saying we're going to drop you these runes when we etch and deploy and airdrop. So they're not going to do that initially with the sat fees potentially astronomical. So they're going to probably wait till everything kind of calms down, and then airdrop and send those out to the different wallet addresses. So in essence, it's like vapor right now. They're just telling you this is what they're going to give you, but it doesn't really exist yet.
Yeah, and a lot of people think like they're already rich and they're gonna be able to dump on everybody as soon as the halving happens, but they might be a few weeks out from that. So that's gonna change. It's gonna cause panic. I think it's gonna make people really like freak out because they don't know what's going on. They don't even know where Rune is right now. So they think they're all gonna get these airdrops as soon as the halving happens, and that might change how things work a little bit and how people think after the halving. I think a lot of people are confused still on how it works.
Could be a big
Yeah,
opportunity there as well. Sorry, Ross, because if you see price dips on these things, could be a good potential time to buy while you have that uncertainty out there and with people not really knowing how it's going to work.
yeah, completely agree with what you're saying there, WAF. And I mean, Jinzo, you bring up a very valid point. It all essentially is IOUs, and I think that's where we're really going to see, who's been building and who's been sitting around. So I know that there's been a lot of discussion over Leonidas, his role in deployment in Runestone. A lot of people did say it boiled down to marketing, but he did a really great job holding up the floor price. But you can just look here at the Magic Eden chart if you're checking out the stream. 8.4 thousand Bitcoin market cap tied up in Runestone. The actual amount that's, tied up in here currently, not sure. But imagining after runes, if there is no hard coded value into runestones in terms of like, hey, we airdrop the rune tokens that we owe you guys, that's it. You're going to see a transfer of liquidity from people who've invested in these projects like Runestone and RSIC with crazy high supplies. And there's lots of different things that could happen. We might see some insane Runestone projects in terms of actual Runestones that get, just crazy valuations, could see multi-billion-dollar market caps on some of the top memes in the space. But we also very well could see that money rotating back into other ordinals projects once the dust settles, maybe stuff like node monkeys and puppets that have been around for a while and are kind of the blue chip status. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Definitely would recommend for people who have large bags to maybe diversify a little bit and just take mental stock of what you're going to be holding. Definitely be prepared for any ordinals that you're holding to be long holds, because I do think as the sats increase and it's more gas to transact, you're probably going to see a little bit less liquidity across the board. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting social experiment. I don't think we've really seen too much like this in the space before, where there's just a brand new methodology of seeing stuff, and then the old stuff is sort of obsolete in front of our eyes, right? Because I mean, obviously, Runestone and Arsic have been the front runners of runes since ordinals have kind of caught on this bull run, but how are you going to compete with the first 100 actual runes or the first stuff from Arsic or the first stuff from Casey? It's just so hard to say what's actually going to happen. So be prepared for anything. And I think WAF saying he's going to play it on the fly is a smart idea.
Oh, hey Ross, you hear me?
Yes. Hello, hello.
Okay. You know what? I think when I join your stream, I get rugged. Okay. So what I was saying is a lot of these runes ordinals, these pre-mine ones, might potentially dip in price. But then just as they dip in price, then all it takes is just one announcement that there's going to be another airdrop to those ordinal holders to pump them back up. So I think um, there could be opportunity there in the ordinals after the runes actually drop. Um, and then there could be runes that are deployed that are just like shit coins that don't go anywhere, even though they're deployed early. So we might see, I don't know, we could see 1,000 runes deployed in the first week, maybe even more. So then that doesn't, just because they're early doesn't necessarily mean like they're all going to be good. So I think winners will emerge, and then you'll see the losers kind of drop off, and then eventually being early is not going to even matter, right? Because at the end of the day, it's probably the first one that matters. Maybe a select few after that, and then after that, it doesn't really matter if you etched on day 2 or day 3. It's not going to matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, really well said there, WAP. And I mean, just to differentiate from the people listening at home, it is very, very, very easy to etch a rune. The only limiting factor is the actual fees required to etch something onto the Bitcoin blockchain, especially with competitive sats that are going to be going down. But there's going to be really high gas because it is a competitive field, right? You have the first mover advantage. We've seen it with new chains like Blast. There's always people competing for market share, and when you're brand new to a chain, there's not a lot of other stuff there. But on top of that, there's going to be premiums for what is the OG rune in the chain. Oh, you see it with stuff like ordinals. Hey, this is a sub 10k ordinal. This is a top collection, the first PFP, the first 10k PFP, whatever. There's always the first sort of historical significance around it. So at least for the first 100 or so runes, even if they're pretty shitty memes, there might be plays there in terms of just like, hey, this is a first 100 rune. We've seen that with lots of stuff, be it ENS IDs. There was like just the numbers club of, hey, the first 10,000 ENS IDs have a premium to it. So I would certainly be open minded. You're going to see a ton of dumb names, just candidly, right? There's going to be people who are like, I love money with like 5 E's. And then some people are going to be, I love money too with 7 E's. Like you're going to see some dumb names, some dumb projects, but I would look for like all of the different angles you can approach for runes as they're coming out. Because even something with a stupid name, if no one else is claiming it, if it's a first 100 rune, there's still some validity there in terms of like a play later on. But definitely look for like the memeability and earliness if you're really looking to get started. But it's going to be gas wars like we haven't seen since ETH for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a sub 100 might cost you like 1 Bitcoin, so like that's not the game I'm playing. But first 10k rune collection, that's actually an interesting one. Or first full collection, sort of like the Node Monkeys slash Bitcoin Frogs route. Like I think that'll have some provenance that's long standing. And of course, anything that's sub 100 will be, in the god tier of rune and etches or inscriptions or whatever you want to call it. That's going to always maintain value and provenance. And then probably up until I would say sub 1,000. Then once you get to 10,000, I think the lore of that wears off a bit, and that'll be reflected, I think, in the sat fees as those first blocks get mined. I think you'll see the sats go extremely high and then kind of calm down, and then we'll get to sort of like a bull market standards sat like fee, and then also we'll talk about runes nonstop. Also, Bitcoin price will now should reflect some potential big movement at the halving, like with all the ETF pressure on buying bitcoins and at a lower price right now. It's like discounted, and then with the less supply coming in, that's gonna play a big factor on these things too. So far, it seems like when Bitcoin pumps, everything pumps. Like we haven't seen like that reverse effect. So I think that's gonna kind of continue to keep going. Whereas I think if we see a Bitcoin price decrease, I think we'll see the correlated decrease in ordinals, runes, BRCs, etc. So that's kind of like I feel like we're just playing it sort of like on easy mode. Everything's kind of correlated right now, until they're not.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, it's going to be so interesting to see again with all the funds that are unlocking. It's also just like a notable dip for Bitcoin. It definitely has, flirted around the 60,000 price range before, usually gets bought up. Obviously, it's a different political climate right now and a different time in the bull cycle. So who's to say if Bitcoin rips or doesn't? Um, Without a doubt, runes are going to be hot. Stuff in the runes field is going to be pumping. All eyes on it. But it really is going to be interesting to see what the Bitcoin price action leads in terms of network effects. Is it going to take the market with it? Is it going to take it down? So we'll be glued into seeing it. For people who don't really know about, the structure of Bitcoin gas fees, it's very similar to the Ethereum network, where once it gets congested, it takes a while to clear. And the reason this happens is because the more transactions that are sent to a given block, it will then push back all of the blocks that are in queue. So just to give an example, if the current block is, let's say, 100 sats per VByte, and let's say there's a really hot rune that comes out in that time frame. So everyone's sending through their transactions and there's like, okay, I need to make sure I get into that top block. They send 120 sats per VByte. Now, all of the people who sent at 100 sats per VByte, their transactions go into the block behind the current block because the current block gets replaced with transactions, and now that's at 120 sats per VByte. So that's going to just keep scaling and scaling, and you'll see pockets during runes where just people are sending 1,000, 2,000, and all of these things kind of layer, and you have to wait for all of those transactions to clear until the network kind of settles down a little bit and you see that portion clear. So just as a little piece of information to share with the chat, if you're sending transactions, try to make sure that you're enabling RBF within your wallet that you're using. RBF stands for replaced by fee, which essentially means that after you send a transaction, you're going to be able to resend that transaction with a higher priority, and that would replace the existing transaction. And I'm getting slightly nervous because I see Sola came off mute, so she might tell me I'm way off with that, but that is my understanding, at least for what we might be seeing with runes.
Yeah, like interestingly enough, last night I was minting a BRC20. It was OFAN. It was OFAN. And at the time, sats were about 60. I figured, oh, let me send a little bit more, like about 70, 75. And then it kind of caught on. And by the time my my one I sent was going, it was like in the fifth block and sats were like 180. So even if you go first, doesn't necessarily mean anything because people get to look at the mempool. They see the blocks. They see what the each block had, what stats they're going at, and they can wait and wait and wait, and then decide to send it big at the end. So I think for runes, like my strategy is just to go early, but kind of go aggressively. So just don't underestimate the fee. Go really big, trying to get it confirmed right away, and then let the sat wars happen like after you've been confirmed.
100%. It's my same strategy at all you can eat buffets. Got to hit those crab leg early. Totally kidding there, but well said, Waf. Yeah, I think there's absolute advantage. I mean, people who took place in, gas wars, like we've seen them on ETH network, notably art blocks, when the current gas was like 500 Gwei or something, it just made sense to send 900. You're not going to send it at 500 and hope, oh, I hope this is the top. It's going to keep escalating and escalating and escalating until whatever that sought after rune or block clears out. So honestly, this is where it gets interesting off the bat. We know that the first block is going to be the most contested because people want the real estate. They're going for those rare rune etches. They want the low numbers. They want the fun meme names that they're going to be preparing. and you're going to see crazy sats. Like all of these people etching, I'm expecting to see between 2,000 and 10,000 sats off the bat. I don't know how many blocks that carries over into. There is a very, very solid chance that we see over 2,000 sats for the first 10 to 20 blocks after the halving. So, as people who are going to be interacting with this, looking to even just mint runes and claim them, that is, you know, you're going to have to make the cost determination in your head. Free runes, but if I have to spend 0.01 Bitcoin to claim them, there's still a price associated with it, and there's going to be runes dropping all week long. So there's no script to really follow for this other than the ones that you make internally. I would just think about all these things ahead of time and just know, like, the one certainty is there's going to be very high gas and a lot of projects all coming out at once.
Yeah, and just to recognize this is like a huge opportunity for a lot of people. You're going to see so many whales trying to get into this, but there's like a play for everybody at each bankroll level. And I think that's like a question I'd love to ask Tio when he comes on, is like what he advises for people to do at their specific bankrolls, because whales are going to go for the gusto. They're going to try and buy that block from the miners, get that epic sat, like whatever it takes, etch the first rune. I mean, like that's a game that I can't play, but I want to get a piece of the action, like wherever way I can possible. And I think people also with different varying degrees of bankrolls also want to get a piece of the action one way or another, regardless where that fits in. But just recognize there's a huge opportunity for everyone, as this approaches.
Yeah, really well said. And Crypto Agua, we see you in the chat. I'm going to save that one for Trevor when he comes on here, to be honest. And then, chat, get the questions ready. I am going to ask just to do me a favor when we get Trevor up here, because I know he's only going to be here for probably about an hour. Probably going to limit the amount of troubleshooting questions that we ask him. I would recommend, we do have now a new focus discussion thread for Bitcoin node help. So, save that for other members who are going through it. Save it for ChatGPT, just because I don't want to get us in a situation where we're spending 20 to 30 minutes troubleshooting one specific person's setup. But 100% Crypto Agua will be asking Trevor about UTXOs, sort of his approach to what the speeds might look like there. To your second question, yes, it is possible to be sniped if you activate RBF, but I think it would all be context dependent, right? So turning on RBF, it's probably not maybe the best idea if you're looking to snipe an ordinal. But in terms of just going through, if you're going to be claiming alongside 100 to 200 other people and you're going to be cranking up that gas to try to front run everyone else, I would say you're going to have a lower likelihood of that being replaced. And that's up to you, right? Like the beauty of sending transactions on the Bitcoin network is that it's not going to stall up your entire system, right? We're all used to MetaMask. You have a transaction that falls behind and now you can't send anything else. You can send more transactions. The only thing that's going to happen is your UTXO and Bitcoin associated with it are going to slow down for the time being. But yeah, I would say if you're looking for a workaround, I would recommend downloading Sparrow. It's an application you can get for your PC or Mac. It's going to allow you to sync up your wallet that you're doing, and you can replace your transaction in other ways. There is a CPFP, child pays for parent, where you can send out a second transaction and pay for both your new and original transaction. So there's definitely ways to work around that, even without speeding up and enabling RBF. But great shout on that. And yeah, just send us another ping, Crypto, if we don't get to the original question about UTXOs, but we'll for sure be talking to Trevor in just a couple of minutes when he joins us here.
Yeah, I'll just add to that is that there's a video in somewhere that was dropped today on the Ordinals BRC 20 thread that talks about how many sats you should use per UTXO. And it was under the, I guess, the assumption of 700 sats. So you could probably just kind of scroll through Ordinals chat for a YouTube link. And then maybe I could find it later, and you could see some of the suggestions that YouTuber makes regarding how much sats you should load up each of your UTXOs.
Yeah, and shout out to Switchy. He just answered Lizard Capital, who had a very good question about how much USD it would cost to claim runes. So this is a rough estimate here based on some other people in the space. It looks like about $100 per 1K of sats per VByte. I imagine it depends on the size of the claim, would have some impact on it. in what you're claiming. We can also run that one back and ask Trevor. But definitely going to be dependent on the network activity and how many runes you're looking to claim. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good rule of thumb. It's nice to have that there. I would say err on the side of caution. I would say it's worth it to spend, 20 to 50 extra dollars in gas fees than not getting the runes that you're trying to get. I think, just look at some of the stuff that we've seen with BRC20s, even with like a 21 million supply, stuff like Wizard sitting at $5, stuff like Pups at a 7.7 million supply, $60. Huge market caps available there. So just look at it in the grand picture of what you're trying to accomplish. If it's a free rune mint and you have to spend a few dollars to claim it, I would try to definitely target runes where you can claim a lot of them. If you can only claim, let's say, 100 rune stones per claim, you might want to fade that and go for something where you can claim 1,000, but there's still the same supply because you'll get a better market share.
Yeah, and I'll just say, just from my experience on minting the BRC20 tokens, you may see sats sitting there at like 100 sats, and sending it like at 300 sats may sound like absolutely ridiculous and crazy, but then within 5 to 10 minutes, you look like a genius. So I would say just go for it. If you're gonna go for it, you know what? It's better to go for it and get it than to send it and not get it, and then now you just lost out on your Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And in terms of going for it, Hoopaloop, don't mean to put you on the spot because we did not coordinate this at all. But could you just give us a little go for it, a little pre-game? We're pre-runes here right now. I'm sure the entire chat could just use a blessing of courage to inspire us to send it and be prepared for this rune.
Bro, I'm in the car running errands, but it's time to earn our rune respect. All right, it's earn your respect time. You either stay in the kiddie pool or you jump into the deep end and make some fucking money. Let's go make some fucking money.
Let's
baby,
go.
I'm pumped. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. Let's go, dude.
Dude, even in the car, he came off mute to let us know. Let's go.
Dude, I love that.
I'm now being judged
your
by my
mood.
wife, but that's okay. That's okay. It was worth it. Judgment was worth it.
That's so awesome. That's epic. Yeah, definitely chat. We're moments away from Trevor joining in here. I know he's on another call right now, so he'll be joining us very shortly. Appreciate your patience while we're hopping on in there. But yeah, populate the questions now. Just going to be going in the order of queue in which we get them. So if you got any burning questions for Trevor, even if it's just what he ate for lunch today, feel free to ask and we'll hop over. If you're watching my screen, we're sharing mempool right now. Transactions are pretty low, and this is another shout that I would have. It makes sense if you're going to be preparing UTXOs ahead of time to do it now, pre-halving, right? So like we've talked about this already, you're going to be looking at hundreds to thousands of sats per VByte once the actual halving happens. So if you're trying to stack up on UTXOs that you can use, and this is a great just segue as well. If you're not really sure what I'm saying when I'm talking about UTXOs, and I candidly don't fully understand all the nuances of them, but if you don't know what UTXOs are, ask ChatGPT, join some forums and look them up ahead of time. But they are going to be required when it comes time to claiming runes. They're already required now for ordinals, but sites and platforms like Magic Eden make it very easy for the user. But you do want to start preparing some UTXOs for your wallet, and it's going to go a lot further UTXO per dollar if you're preparing them when sats per VBytes are pretty low. So earlier today, we saw a lot of inscriptions that were going on in ordinals between BRC20s as well as ordinals themselves. This is the lowest that gas has been all day. It was like 200 earlier today and has just been slowly petering off. But yeah, right now is a great time. I would say between that 30 to 50 sat per VByte realm, you're in a really good spot to start stacking up some UTXOs and preparing stuff. Also selling ordinals or whatever else you want to do. But yeah, I would take advantage of it while it's here. And my screen's here. We're 601 blocks away.
Do you recommend the Luminex site for creating UTXOs?
I actually recommend
yeah.
this one that I just dropped, the Magisat one. If you could create you could create UTXOs on Luminex if you're using like your Xverse wallet. But if you're running a node, you're not going to be able to get those UTXOs into that wallet. But you can if you do it from Magisat, because you can change the address of where you want the UTXOs to go.
Okay, appreciate that.
No problem.
Oh my. Wow, that's awesome, dude. Could you give us a little TLDR of just kind of using this tool? This is my first time hearing of this. I've been using Luminex, but I'm very curious what your experience with Magisat has been.
So I just saw this on a video today. So what you do is you go to Magisat, then you go to your profile, and then you go to the payment tab, and then there you'll see a bunch of UTXOs, and then you can kind of just select one, and then I guess create the UTXOs and send it to the address you want to send to. But I guess here you need to have UTXOs that are of I guess enough size that you want them. So if you have UTXOs that are just low, 600 sats or 1200 sats, it might not be enough. But if you find that you have some that are a lot higher in terms of sats, I'd send those to your address that you're using the node that you have set up. Or if that doesn't work, you could always create them in Luminex, get them populated into your X first, and then go to Magisat and then transfer them to your node wallet.
It looks like I touched on Swishy's question a little bit. He asked, "Can't you import your old or your Ord wallet to Xverse and then do the Luminex stuff from there?" So it looks
Yeah,
like you would be able to do that.
Swishy. Yeah, you can do that, Swishy.
And definitely, I would be just taking note of some of these concepts again, even if you're not in this point of the setup yet. I would just be writing stuff down, like Swishy's method. I'm, not fully prepared to implement any of this stuff yet, but it's definitely things I'm going to be looking in. We still have about 4 to 5 more days until the halving here, so it looks like per Swishy, it's the easiest way to be doing it. So definitely going to be looking to import Ord into Xverse. It's a great idea, Swishy. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
a more direct way than what I suggested. So yeah, I agree, Swish. That was a good call.
Hey guys, I had a
Yeah,
question. I'm sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say confirmation. Trevor will be here in just a minute. His call is running over, but Naruto, hit us with it.
In cases where for these loans, if we're sending Bitcoin, let's hypothetically say we don't make it there because we haven't sent enough gas, stuff like that. Do we get like the Bitcoin back, like a Ethereum mint where like it fails? You get your Ethereum back, but I heard on some of these Bitcoin things like you don't get your Bitcoin back unless like the team sends it back to you.
So the way it would work is as long as your transaction actually doesn't go through, you should be able to get it back. So like there's no failed transactions. It would just get stuck in the back of mempool forever, right? So like let's say you sent it with like 5 sats for V bytes for whatever reason, and it's just way in the back and you can't speed it up. It's never going to fail and just transfer. So it's not like in Ethereum where at a certain point you're not going to be able to reach that contract limit. But to that second point, that's a good thing that we can ask Trevor, because I do imagine that for some of these, they're going to be, let's say, oversubscribed. Usually what happens if you're trying to inscribe a BRC20 is you would still get an inscription, it just wouldn't be valid. So there could be multiple inscriptions for the same place in a blockchain or the same NFT. Yeah, exactly. So to Swishy's point, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to talk. Well, I'm trying to respond to Swishy. Yeah. It will go through. You're going to get a rune, but it's not going to be valid. So yeah, you're not going to be able to cancel your transaction. In some cases, you might be able to if you're using something like Sparrow. You could manually go in there and you could try to cancel your transaction and send a faster fee, and you might be able to get a workaround that way. But for the most part, yeah, if your transaction goes through and all of the runes are minted out, you're just going to get an invalid runestone.
And my follow-up to that would be, do you think that most of these runes will be like free in the sense that like you don't have to worry about like losing Bitcoin aside from like your gas?
I think so.
Cool.
Yeah, and to Swishy's point, I mean, gas is going to be pretty expensive as it comes time to this. So, be prepared to lose hundreds of dollars. It really all depends on the network timing. So when the network's a little bit more established, it's been a few days, especially if we have stuff like Magic Eden supporting runes at that point, it's less likely that gas is going to sustain at such a crazy high level. We'll definitely see some ebbs and some flows. But yeah, early on, if you're sending gas at like 5,000 sats per V byte, be ready to lose a few $100s every failed transaction. So that's why it's gas wars, right? Like if you fail back in the old days, if you failed, you'd still lose a few ETH. But if you hit it, you'd hit big. So I think it's just a matter of bankroll management as always, as well as risk management, right? When you're going to mint a project, how many are you minting? Don't want to get greedy with it, but you also want to go for it. So to WAF's point, I think if you're going to go for it, you should definitely go for it. You don't have to do anything crazy. If gas is at 300 sats per VByte, you don't have to send 2,000. But if you're going to send a transaction, I would err on the side of caution and send it a little bit higher.
Also, the total sats that is used to mint out the token is sort of like the implied market cap of the token. So the more it costs, then the higher implied market cap of that particular token it is. So you got to kind of factor in those things as well. Like, is it worth minting this? Because at this rate, this is like $10 million market cap right off the bat, or whatever the case may be. So you got to factor those things in as well. To Jake's point, it is kind of like trying to understand, ETH mint fees, and we call it fees, but we call it like gas, but it's not really gas. It's just fees.
Yeah, it is very high risk, high reward. And I mean, you can look at BRC20s just as an example of how high some of these market caps could go, right? Like we've seen stuff with pups already, again, where it's a 7.7 million supply, but they're still at $60 a token. There's probably going to be bigger memes that are coming out of this runestone cycle. And with that, we have Trevor here at long last. Trevor, welcome, man. Happy to have you. You're going to be so proud to know that the two hosts of the Ordinal show at MVHQ are repping Pizza Ninja profiles. And just to set the stage, guys, Trevor is a longtime MVHQ member. He is the founder of Pizza Ninjas. He is an Ordinals OG as well as Bitcoin OG. And he is taking time in the absolute busy schedule he has running Pizza Ninjas, which are just doing a 24/7 boot camp and runestone preparations, to come talk to us about runes and all the burning questions that we have. So super excited to have you, Trevor. Happy Rune Monday, man.
What's going on, guys? Great to be here. And of course, I got to come visit the fam, before the war arrives here on Bitcoin, and help you guys as much as I can. So great to be here, and yeah, happy to help any way I can.
Yeah, Trevor, just an honor to have you here at like the peak moment of Bitcoin and runes, and even just Pizza Ninjas in general seems to just be elevating like high into space. All the value that the community is providing to people setting up the nodes and getting ready for runes. It's a pleasure to have you right now, like while you're in such a high demand.
Yeah. So, how can I help, guys? Like, let me know. Like, what's I heard a little bit of the convo. It just came from a call, but it sounds like you guys have been studying hard and getting everybody ready.
So
well, let's
I think
get some alpha from
go
you.
ahead, Ross.
Sorry, go ahead, Ross. Go ahead, Ross. Okay, I was going to ask you, like, how are you playing this process leading up into runes, and then what would you give advice to, I guess, for people based on their varying degrees of payroll on bankroll of what they should do? Like, what do you suggest for the guy who has under 1 Bitcoin? What do you suggest for the whale? What would you do?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is, of course, to like run a Bitcoin node and have the right tools at your disposal. And that's why we're doing like 2 weeks, like almost like a coding boot camp in the ninjas. Um, and because I think a lot of the different sites are going to go down, or maybe be very clunky and not work quite right within the first couple of hours. And I think everything's going to happen super fast. I think that everybody is gearing up to launch their projects, even if they're not gonna, like even if you're gonna not launch a token. Like, let's say you're a VC funded company, VC funded startup, and you're not planning to launch your token right now. You're still gonna want to etch, as early as you can, because we know those low numbers are very attractive just from a attention perspective and provenance perspective. And we'll probably see, I'm hearing from a lot of my portfolio companies like, hey, should I, we're going to pre-mine like 95%, but should we give 5%, to just let people mint, just to get some attention and some marketing and word of mouth out there. And I think that, so it's not just gonna be meme coins, but there's going to be probably a couple banger meme coins that can, end up getting listed on major centralized exchanges and having communities form around them. And there's also going to be a lot of utility projects. So I'm comparing like this event to like, being bigger than Apple's WWDC or being bigger than CES, but for this industry, because there's so many projects that are going to launch. And so just having the right tools at your disposal is the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is yeah, like just being like, this is not a game of like inside knowledge. It's a game of reaction time, and finding the source of information when things play out, because this is going to be like totally sort of like unbridled chaos on the launch. There's going to be so much coming in that the noise is going to be so high. It's going to be like drinking from Niagara Falls instead of just drinking from the fire hose. And so, there's going to be 10,000 tokens within a few hours probably. And then, you know, the thing that I first learned when I came to MVHQ is that you have like, 50 people in the voice chat, all, you start at the top, I'll start at the bottom, or you start in the middle, and like just looking through these things and doing homework on it, and then saying, hey, I think I found something. What do you think about this? And then that type of like, in that type of environment, like the human interaction and teamwork, is how we evolved, to be the apex predator on planet Earth, is like collaboration and being able to sift through and react and respond. And so it's going to be that type of an environment. And so you do want to be careful about minting right away, because gas prices are going to go down. Like every block, they're just going to plummet, right? So, it's not clear how it's going to unfold. There's no precedence for this. I do think that having experience in gas wars on Ethereum is going to help you at least kind of be able to project a potential scenario on it of like what it could look like. But it's going to just be a massive spike up to a huge level. The block's going to get mined. It's going to drop. And then these blocks are 10 minutes long. So it's not like a gas war on Ethereum where, it's 12 seconds, and a minute goes by, several blocks are mined, and it's over. It's like every block is going to be 10 minutes, and it could be shorter. It varies between 1 minute to, 60 minutes. But, it's like the difference between an MMA fight where the fighters are in the ring for, 30 seconds to a minute versus they're in the ring for 10 minutes at a time. It's like the latter is going to be a much more brutal, fight, with like someone might die at the end. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be, so, you do want to get in the mempool quickly, but you want to know how to RBF your transactions and speed them up, and um, understand the tech as much as you can, because, that block might blow by in a minute, or it might, you might be in there for 60 minutes. So being able to watch the mempool, what's going on, and just having some type of like plan for like, hey, I'm going to wait till the 5th block, or I'm going to wait till the 6th block, and going in with a plan, and then, reacting based on what you set your expectation, and then adjusting your strategy based on what really happens. So it's all going to be, I don't know if it's all going to be over quickly. Probably not. Like, we're going to want to see how some of these mint out, and we want to understand maybe how many mints can fit inside a single block. So I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if like everyone's going to be looking at the first 10, first 100, and then first 1,000. It's going to be pretty predictable in that way. And a lot of people might just blow their bankroll too early, because the fees are going to drop dramatically after the first few blocks. And so, yeah, you just got to juggle and balance and weigh all these factors. And just like the best advice is to get some sleep, drink some water, don't drink alcohol the night before, or get, smoke too much, and, be there at the right time at the right place, and do your best. And I think it's going to be a very positive EV lottery. You might need to mint, 1,000 shit coins on Solana before big one, but on Bitcoin, it's like you mint the first 10, one of those is going to be potentially listed on probably Binance, so it's pretty good odds. There's no guarantee of success, but it's going to be a roller coaster.
That's some great alpha right there. What are the tools you're going to be using to kind of monitor things? Like I know we'll be checking out Mempool and checking out ordinals.com for maybe like the latest inscriptions, but what other tools do you use to like monitor everything?
It's a tough question. So we're probably going to write some like custom scripts to be able to check this stuff. I haven't quite wrapped my head around it yet. It's kind of what I'm doing this week. I've been looking for tools that can show you like mempool and what's going on. Of course, mempool.space does have it, but I don't know if you like, it won't be very easy to see like this is a rune, this is not a rune, etc. So, like to be safe, if like you don't have access to one of those tools on the day of, you're gonna want to, um, you know, go for those that are safer, like that they're 50%, 50% minted out, not like 90% minted out, because then, you may still get in the same block, but if your transaction is not, near the top, then, you might not get the mint, right? So there's going to be a lot of guesswork. I'm not exactly sure of a great answer, but I think something that people should be looking into, and see if you guys find tools, please let me know, because that would save me a lot of time.
I mean, there's no real playbook though. That's what makes it so interesting. I mean, you could try and check potentially social media profiles and see things that are potentially being inscribed, but at the end of the day, nobody really knows. So just wanted to see if you knew anything that we could use, but I guess we're all in the same boat.
Yep.
Yeah, Trevor,
There was one.
appreciate that.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Matt. We got a good question from chat here. Just going into it, is there any security concerns or just general security awareness that we should know? I'd say probably specific to just claiming or minting a runestone. Anything that is a big risk that you know of that kind of exists where people might be vulnerable to getting drained.
So I think it's better in Bitcoin, because like the you know the number of websites that you don't know that you actually need to use is like very low. Like you shouldn't need to use any website you don't know, and I wouldn't recommend using any website you don't know. I always discourage people from, even launching on their own website. Like it's very hard to even build. Like it's not like Ethereum, where you just can copy and paste the smart contract and set up with a website, connect MetaMask. That's not how people build claims and stuff like that. They actually have to build some custom stuff, and there is no white label solution. So I don't know why a team would build that. Like we launched on Magic Eden because it saved us, all that time to develop that. And there's a couple other launch pads that compete with Magic Eden too. There's like Luminex, there's OrdinalsBot. So there's a lot of these like white label sites that do the hard tech stuff behind the scenes. And if anyone is like not one of these websites, you should definitely be very skeptical of it. But one of the benefits of Xverse is that if you, first of all, connecting your Xverse to a site will not like drain your wallet in any way. And you have to sign a transaction, and the transaction will actually show you, hey, you're sending out, 20 ordinals to an address, and you're not getting anything back. Like you just click the it'll have like a little icon. They'll say like your inputs are these ordinals, for example, and then your outputs are these. You're sending these, and so because there's a different Bitcoin address than there is an ordinals address, it becomes pretty clear when you're dealing with a malicious transaction that's trying to steal your stuff. So you don't need to be as like paranoid as you do on ETH. At the same time, I would just say like don't use any sites that you haven't heard of, or that aren't like a well-known brand in the space. And always just check the transaction, what inputs are going into it. If there's any ordinals in there, it should immediately be a red flag. And always ask around and get your friend to do it first. Let your friend be the guinea pig. Don't be the guinea pig yourself.
So speaking of like these white labeled, I guess, websites, what's your confidence level as far as like the Magic Edens of the world, the Luminexes of the world, that they'll be ready for runes on
I
day
would
one?
say I think they'll be ready on day one. I don't think they'll be ready within the first few hours. I think, and I think that you don't want to be on the site in the first few hours. I think people are just going to be refreshing that page. They're going to get DDoSed, just by their users, because the interest is going to be so high, and it's going to be a bit unpredictable. So I wouldn't, I'm definitely not banking on it. And I think that probability wise, like 50-50 that they work, maybe less than 50-50, maybe like 40% chance that like some of these tools are working in the first couple of hours.
And then I saw you tweet about potential, I guess, concierge services that ninjas will be doing, I guess, on behalf of other ninjas. Will that be using some custom tools as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have a dev that we're working with who's like a badass Chad, Giga Chad, type of dev who's going to be doing that concierge service. So, and we're giving him a good we're paying him well as well to take care of our holders. So there's maybe you can find people out there like devs that you can work with, but I of course wouldn't like trust anyone out without a referral or that hasn't been that they've been in ordinals for a while. I'm sure or if you have friends in the Ninja Discord, I mean, Ross and WAF, like, maybe you guys can get a cut, if people aren't prepared, take a little 10% here or there, not a bad idea.
That's good to know. We got a lot of ninjas in MVHQ, Trevor. Just so you know, I mean, I see a lot of people in the chat repping their ninjas. So we've been with you since day one, and we'll continue to support ninjas. And I know you've launched ninja alerts way back when, and MVHQ was kind of there in the beginning as well. So yeah, man, I'll take advantage of that concierge service and try and get some finder's fee as well. Like, why not?
Awesome.
What's up,
Yeah,
Trevor?
no, dude. MV is the best. Yo, Jinzo, what's up?
How are you, bro? Sorry, Ross. Did you have a question before I ask mine? I had one too, just to get a take on something.
Yeah, I was gonna ask a question we got from some people in chat, Jinza, but go ahead and then I'll ask afterwards. Just gotta
Cool. I just
shoot
have
here.
one anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to know what Trevor, what your take was on these pre-runes. Like, how do you think they play out early on? And do you think all of them actually go to market?
I think a lot of them don't. I think honestly, the market rewards hard work, and I think the market rewards intelligence. And I think what I see with pre-runes is like a lot of people who are just lazy, not like, stuff like Runestone where you got airdropped and you're holding it. Maybe, I don't know, but like, pre-runes is like the play where it's like, oh, I couldn't set up a Bitcoin node in time, and now, I need to go get a pre-rune, right? Like that's kind of how I view it. And I think that the teams doing the pre-runes, like, when we talk about how expensive these airdrops are going to be, like I'm thinking about this stuff 24/7 every day. And, we're a couple weeks away and I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be way more expensive than I thought. Like my guess is if I'm surprised and didn't like anticipate that, then a lot of them are. Not that I'm like overconfident myself or whatever, but people are always like, oh, there's good teams behind it. And of course they have, it's like, no, man, like in this space, how quickly people do things and they just see a meta and they're like, we got to get in this meta. Let's do this. Like the problem with the pre-runes is that if the gas stays over 3,000, right? Like to do an airdrop of 8,000 at 1,000, sorry, yeah, let's say a 10K at like 1,000 is going to be 50 grand. Okay, multiply that by 3 for 3K. They're going to have to pay 150 grand. Like a lot of these are airdrops. A lot of these are not primary sales of any kind. And they already had to spend, probably 20 grand to do the airdrop or 10 grand to do the airdrop at the best. So, I don't think that like someone just like, does an airdrop being like, oh yeah, no problem. Like we'll drop 200 grand, and some of these are 20K, right? So if it's 20K at 3,000, talking 300K, right? Probably more. My math might even be off, right? So I just don't know like how many of these projects have hundreds of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin and that was their plan all along. Because if you told me that was the plan all along, I'd say it's a really fucking dumb plan because you could just etch and like get in the first block much, you get in the first block with less than that, with like half of that or a third of that probably. Like how many people are going to etch and spend one Bitcoin? Probably a few, but I don't think 1,000 people are going to spend one Bitcoin to be in the first block on fees. Or the second block on fees, right? So I just think like those projects, the benefit is that they've gotten community building and exposure, and they better have gotten a lot of it because the trade-off is they're going to be slow on the go to market. And 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months are all like potential scenarios where hey, we're after the halving and like we're not even the bull run yet. Like what we saw with BRC20 was like these fees sustained for months. Like the fees sustained for 2 months. And now we're going into the post ETF world. We're going into the post halving bull run. There's some scenarios where they just don't have the bankroll to do the airdrop. And so I think it's a real risk. I think that, personally, don't go out tweeting I'm fighting this, because I don't say this as publicly. I'm saying this for you guys. Like, I think a lot of the juice is squeezed out of the secondary on a lot of pre-runes, and I think they're competing with free. They're competing with free, first to market, of course, other than fees. And I think the first ones that are going to be listed by centralized exchanges are going to be these free ones, because they're just going to be out there so much faster. They're going to build communities faster. They're going to be doing a lot more volume than pre-runes. I mean, when you go to Magic Eden and you see runes or pre-runes, which tab are you going to spend your time on? Are you going to get the real thing, or are you going to get the thing that's not real yet, right? Like, the volume is going to go all the way over to the runes, and it's just going to be the place to be. And so I think that if it's not a top 1, 2, 3 pre-rune, I think that, in my opinion, it's maybe not the play right now because of all the factors, not just like the challenge and cost and risk of them doing it, but also the slow go to market and the lack of attention that's going to shift. And yeah, like it's a bunch more of a gamble, right? Because they're also have had price appreciation and price discovery already. Whereas the free on launch stuff is all price discovery, right? Like all, the skill cap is very high, whereas the pre-runes are going to be in a tougher situation.
Yeah, thank you. You hammered away what we've been saying here for the last 2 or 3 days, and actually added on way more. So you don't have to worry about us fighting. We've been doing it already for a couple days.
That's very
Thank you,
true.
bro.
How do
Yeah,
you think
really do.
Casey's first 10 or runes are gonna play out? I mean, you think he's got 10 ready to deploy, or just kind of etch them and wait till deploy them later? How do you think that's gonna play?
Hope he does, because I just think it'll be better assurance for the ecosystem. I think it'll be better for the ecosystem. Um, my guess is he'll do at least a couple more. I hope he does the full 10. For him, it's like maybe the barriers that he doesn't have enough good names. I don't know what it is, or if he's just waiting to surprise us all about them. And I mean, if he's gonna hard code them, like, he's gonna have to update Ord, right? So, you know, each day that goes by and he doesn't say anything, number one means that if he posts an update to Ord the day of the halving or the day before the halving, you have an even higher chance that none of the websites are prepared and Magic Eden is not live and all the stuff isn't live for the main day if they have to update their system and read his code and stuff like that. And then yeah, it'll be in the code, so you'll be able to see the first 10 when he ships the update. If he doesn't update, then they're not going to be there. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's gonna play out like ordinals, whether it makes sense or not, just because people have been so conditioned by ordinals that oh yeah, first 10, first 100, first 1,000, the floor of the first 1,000 ordinals are 0.7 BTC. And with these tickers, it's going to be, these are all projects, right? So these are all collections within, the first 1,000. So the value of those is going to be even much more. And this is why I think miners are going to claim the first 1,000. I had a couple calls with some people. Everything seems a bit up in the air right now. And I think people are still jockeying with the different miners and placing bids, and it's all a giant shit show in that regard. I hope a miner that gets a block doesn't take it. Even if I'm in the round, for the deal, I'd prefer it to be, for the community. And I just think it'd be better for the long-term health. But I also think if they do get it and they claim a bunch of them, that it won't be the death of runes. And I think anyway, from the conversation I've had, the people who are trying to bid for them are also trying to, give a couple cookies to the community and not, totally take all 1,000 themselves, but take a portion, or, put some free mints out there, or get some tickers for some of the top projects and stuff like that. So I think the first 10 are definitely going to be the main place to focus on. I think I'll be watching the first 10 that mint out first. This is the kind of thing I've been thinking about, is the ones that mint out first are probably going to have some type of, validation of demand, for example, and people are going to want to buy those on secondary. But also one that takes longer to mint out and has more unique holders. Like there could be, I could see both scenarios playing out where like the ones that mint out the fastest, if they have enough holders, are going to be the top ones, or it could be one that takes longer, gets even more holders, and by the time they mint out, that's when like it all kind of depends on like the timeline of these centralized exchanges. So like our centralized exchanges, gonna wait till the first week and then pick something. Ultimately they're just gonna pick whatever has the most demand on secondary, and so there's definitely probably slightly stronger case for whatever's leading volume the fastest, right? So, but that doesn't mean like if something mints out super fast because it's very small and doesn't have holders, then the volume will probably be a lot less, in the 2 week period afterwards. So it's kind of like balancing those factors. And then, if any of them are like a utility based, like if someone's going to build a DEX or something like that, like those type of metas could make something go up a lot more. And so doing a little bit of homework, if you can find information on the team, and so seeing how they etch it and like the level of detail in there is always a good sign. But then being able to find like who are those serious players in the first 10 or first 100. Like if first 10 is all just like meme coins, there could be one first 100 that's like a serious DeFi project or a serious DEX or something like that, where I don't know that they would go the route of like everybody like just being able to mint it no matter what. Maybe they will, and they'll do a second token. Like like the analogy is sort of like the Tap ecosystem, right? Because I believe Tap was like, there was not like a big team allocation of tokens, but then they did do multiple other tokens. But because they had so many holders, like just became like this massive, bullish cult of people who like was a force to reckon with, right? Similar to like Bitmap and stuff.
Trevor, definitely appreciate all that insight there. And yeah, I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see. You raised a really good point in terms of all of the, miners playing out and trying to claim all of the runes early on and just how that might impact the ecosystem. That's something I definitely hadn't thought of before. But it's something that's definitely top of mind now, and just how it plays out over the course of days. Obviously, we've seen stuff where shitcoins where devs claim 30% of the supply and dump on the community, and then eventually there's a run up from there once it dissipates into enough people's hands. So it'll be really interesting to see that play out. We've had some people asking just in the audience from a general perspective, if it's not going to be the first, let's say 100,000 10,000 runes, whatever, during this rune mania, when people are going to be deploying thousands of runes off the bat, is there anything in terms of name or ticker or team that stands out to you? And as a follow-up to that, for some of the memes that already exist in the space, let's use Magic Internet Money as the example. There's people who have already established themselves as wanting to deploy that rune, the Bitcoin Wizards. If for whatever reason a random person is able to mint that rune, do you think it's the name that makes the rune, or do you think it's going to be the founder behind that project? As in, if a random person mints it, will it still have that same staying power as it would if a notable person in the space etched it?
I think it could go multiple ways. I think it could be that way, and like the founder might just be like roll with it, like we saw with Pups. It could be, the opposite, where we saw with like the Node token or whatever it was that came out, and like the Node monks Twitter was like, this has nothing to do with us. This is a scam or whatever. I forget what they said. Or it could be, a third one where it's like they initially fight it and then they give in later. I mean, it could play out any way. I think personally, I don't have any picks off the top of my head, because I think this is like, again, this is like the world stage. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter what circle I'm in or you're in, like when you go to the Olympics, like you don't know like how good people are. You know what I mean? You could be, the state champion, the regional champion, the national champion, but when you go to the world stage, it's like there's so many players that you just got to be open to anything, right? And so I think that like the real thing is like going to be watching the game play out and reacting. And I think that if you're trying to make picks now, you might be missing the point, which is that, this is going to be bigger than CES, for launch. It's going to be bigger than Apple's developer conference. It's like there's not just a new iPad, a new MacBook, a new Apple TV, a new iPhone, et cetera. There's like times that by 100, right? There's going to be so much going on that I think any premature picking of names, et cetera, is going to be premature optimization. And you just got to be like in the moment, figuring out which direction the wind is going and seeing who gets first 10, who gets first 100, first 1,000. I think it'll be harder, for etches above 10,000 in terms of just like the price action, the volume, the attention. Attention is definitely going to consolidate on the lower numbers. And so yeah, I think like it'll really depend on like how many are mintable and how quickly they're minting out. And once like first 100 mint out, then you got to mint first 1,000. Like everyone's going to kind of take that approach. And then once first 1,000 are minted out, people are going to mint, probably like once you get to 10,000, like minting out is going to be harder. And maybe the ones that do mint out in the 10,000 be more, have more legs to them. But I really think that volume is going to consolidate around a few different projects. And so maybe you need to be willing to cut your losses too if you like, make a play. I mean, there's so many different ways to handle this. Like it's hard for me to even wrap my head around all the things that are going to happen, all the different strategies you might take into this environment.
Yeah, definitely. Before you joined, WAP was saying that I think the best way to approach it is just be prepared and then play it as it comes. And that makes, a ton of sense. Definitely makes a lot of sense as well with what you're saying, where, we might just see some of these pre-runes flop as some of these projects are free. For people who haven't had the chance to set up a node and might not be able to in time, what do you think they should be prepared for? If you have any insights or any thoughts of what price action might look like after the fact. I know that the people who are setting up nodes have the advantage of claiming a lot of these runes early for free. But if you're, playing from secondary onward, do you have any general advice or thoughts you've had as to like looking for emerging runes that you might still get in even, post node once it's on market?
Yeah, like I think generally the secondary market, won't take off until there's scarcity, right? So, when all the first 10 are minted out, then people are probably going to trade and put some volume towards the first 10 on secondary. When first 100 are minted out, they're probably going to take some volume towards that. And it just depends on like the back of the napkin math of like people's entry price versus their exit price and how much it's gone up and what the market cap is and the comparables. So I think that like definitely you want to have some type of like Venn diagram of like lower numbers and sort of timing. Like, I love how I think it was like Mitch who told me about how like, you sell the top, you buy the bottom again, you sell the top again, buy the bottom again, sell the top again, like this type of thing. Like there might be some type of like pattern that you can do like that in the on the launch that like might be quite profitable, but it's hard to say because again, like we don't know when marketplaces are going to ready, when trading is going to start. Like whatever you think is going to happen is not going to happen. That's what I could say for sure. Whatever anyone says or thinks is going to happen, including myself, is not going to happen. But there should be a lot of, and again, it's 10-minute block time, so it's not like you can get in and out of stuff really quickly like you can on Solana, for example. So, having a lot of UTXOs, even if you don't have a Bitcoin node and you're not like planning to mint a ton of these, you should be splitting your UTXOs in your Xverse wallet anyway. You know what I mean? And you should have a spreadsheet where you look at, the network fee times like what's going to cost transaction wise, and you should be making a game plan and then try to have a very adaptable plan so that you can be responsive and reactive rather than like locked in. And I think, try to play the primary market and secondary market at the same time, optimize a bit for the earlier numbers, and like watch Twitter, have people around you to get their opinions on, and that's probably the best that anybody can say at this time, you know.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. We got some questions from chat that I want to ask you, Trevor. In regards to UTXOs, are people able to exchange UTXOs between wallets? So even if they don't have their node up and running now, are they able to prepare that? And then as it relates to UTXOs when it comes time to runes, do you know if there's any programs or strategies involved to transfer runestones out of your wallet into a different one so you don't run the risk of a runestone being burnt in place of a UTXO once runestones are live?
Yeah, so I think you definitely, I think Xverse is going to be the most prepared. So, I wouldn't use Leather. I probably wouldn't use Unisat. I mean, I don't know what Unisat's. They've said that they have a bunch of stuff, but I haven't tested out the wallet. I just know for a fact that like Xverse has been cooking on this for a month, and they've been like laser focused on it. And so like my plan is even like I'm gonna mint from my Bitcoin node, and I'm gonna send them to my Xverse wallet, so that way I can go on to Magic Eden. So my Bitcoin node is gonna be just the like minting wallet. It's gonna be empty by the time Runes is done, and then I'm gonna be moving over to Xverse for listing, buying, trading, etc. And so um yeah, I think you should be fine. I don't think you need to be too worried about it. I think we've learned a lot of lessons from ordinals and from people mistakenly sending their ordinal as gas and stuff like that. I don't think that will be a big issue early on. But yeah, I mean, definitely things can always go wrong, but I think try to keep things simple and you'll be fine.
Awesome. Also got some questions about MEV bots. Is there any concern for that in terms of, we see them all the time on different networks and their shit coins and meme coins. Is that something that's going to exist on Runes or something we need to prepare for?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we're gonna enter like MEV season with this, and I don't think it's something that a lot of people are even prepared for. I mean, it was wild when Rindo, the CTO of Tapper Wizards, he made this MEV bot called Sophon, and it's open source and anybody can download it. And what it would do is whenever someone would mint a BRC20 ticker in the mempool, or deploy a BRC20 ticker in the mempool, he would just snipe it and bump the fee and set the supply to 1. And then no one could mint it. And so like there was a time when like the mempool, I think it was like in August or sometime, like you could literally it was literally like a few days after he started running it. Like I saw him like tweet about how he started running it. All of a sudden no one's minting BRC20s anymore. And so a lot of people don't know how to do it right now. So it's like pretty early. There's people who are starting to do it. Magisat launched a marketplace that you can RBF and you can snipe people's buys on it. Ordinals Market has had their own proprietary platform that they haven't let anybody use, including myself, for like a few months. And people have been cooking on that and they've been scooping up all the fat fingers. And like MEV is going to be huge, like especially considering this is going to be the start of like DeFi on Bitcoin. That like there's going to be people who become like super rich, like not just like 7 digits, but like 8 digits, in Bitcoin from the different MEV opportunities, just like even arbitraging price and stuff like that. And I think the thing is like any type of bot, eventually like similar to like sniping and stuff like that on Ethereum, where it was like once everybody had the sniping tool, like the potential arb was like arbed out and there wasn't as much arbitrage because everybody was sniping. It was just like, so hard to compete. And then I think similar will happen with Bitcoin. So this is another reason why I encourage people like running a Bitcoin node is no harder than like running BitTorrent. Like downloading the blockchain is like downloading, every season of Stranger Things. And running Ord and runes on the command line, yeah, it's a little bit harder, but I mean, like our parents, didn't have a Macintosh. Like they had like DOS and they had to use command line for everything. Like it's not rocket science. And then, some of these, if you can understand how to write some of these custom transactions and stuff like that, like you're like one step away once you have runes running. And I think that there's going to be so many opportunities. Like the marketplace is switching from, the website to the mempool. Like I would, and because it's 10-minute blocks, like again, these things are like the faster the blocks, the harder it is to do Mev and Dev Gas Wars and things like that. I mean, I don't know about like I don't know about Solana. Like I'm sure that there's bots that move really quick and respond to people and probably can do sandwich attacks and stuff like that. But like it's a lot harder because things get confirmed almost instantly versus you have 10 minutes to react and respond and see what's going on. And there have been like on some of these Mev marketplaces or mempool marketplaces, like the Ordinals market one, there's a sat flow. Like there will be, a quantum cat. I think it was actually the quantum cat that had the gold cape, right? Like it was like on the floor and that you can change it for a tapper wizard. But like as soon as somebody bought it, the people in these mempool markets already sniped it. And not only that, but they're sniping each other back and forth, the highest bidder. And so I think this is going to be the most interesting place and probably like there's a lot fewer people competing in the mempool than there are people competing just on the marketplace itself. And so you need to think of the mempool as a marketplace itself. It's kind of its own order book. And I think that's going to be the arena where the most gains are going to be gotten in the next, 9 months because things are going to be constantly evolving. You may find a Mev opportunity. Like there's somebody who's minting the first bitmap of every block, and they wrote a Mev bot where it's like, no matter what fee you would pay to get to inscribe the first bitmap, they would RBF you and snipe it and put one up. And then eventually that person went and like made a contract with like a miner or something like that, so that the miner's just like recognizing their transactions and approving them, even with like no fee or something like that. So this game is gonna be played, and I think if you're a trader, like you have to learn about it because otherwise, you're just gonna get mev'd all the time, and you know, yeah, that's where the action's really gonna happen.
Appreciate that, Trevor. Yeah, I mean, you're a fountain of knowledge with all the different stuff here, so it's really great to hear your perspective, just knowing more about the in and outs of developers and Mevs implementers in the space. I have a more general question here from Crypto Agua, and very curious your thoughts on this. Just from you pondering over runes for the past weeks and months, is there anything recently, an epiphany that you may have had, or just a broad thought that's top of your mind, just in terms of how you might approach runes or opportunities that might be?
Yeah, so my personal going strategy is called calculated spray and pray, right? So it's like we're going to be in a complete chaos environment, and it's just like managing your bankroll and basically spray and pray. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna spend every sat I have allocated. I'm gonna spend it the best I can, and I'm gonna do it based on some of the strategies I have. But it's just gonna be a spray and pray approach. And I think honestly, the more we go into a bull run, there's gonna be a lot of garbage that moons. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're just purely a trader, you know, there's going to be so many opportunities, like stuff that has almost no fundamentals is going to go up pretty high. It could be like ICO, 2017 ICO mania on Bitcoin in the coming months. And it's just about trying to get in as much stuff as you can and like quitting your job, being on the computer all day. And, definitely optimize for the better projects, but it's really just, everything's going to go up, and, you know, shoot first, ask questions later, and try to if you find something that's good, like hold on to it and don't sell it. Otherwise, get in early, flip, move on to the next thing, keep your eyes forward, as they say in MVHQ.
Just with the
Awesome, man. Love
anticipated
that.
congestion on layer 1, what do you think happens with layer 2s?
Oh, layer 2, I would say like runes, ICOs, and layer 2s are going to be the biggest like alpha and positive EV of the cycle for sure. Like there's not going to be, you know, a blockchain faster than Solana, and like, who cares anyway? There's going to be lots of Bitcoin L2s. Bitcoin L2s are like different because I think, you know, you don't want to invest in an undoxed team, you know, not doing solid R&D. You know, you want to invest in like definitely the blue chips. There's going to be a bestseller effect. You want to find ones that have tokens. You want to get in early. You want to farm them. It's going to be, you know, gotta be able to farm all of them at the same time, right? You also want to be careful about locking up things that are going to give you airdrops in any L2s. But I think, you know, as a whole, like Runes is probably going to be 100 billion, multiple $100 billion market. I'm not sure how quickly. L2s this year is going to be, you know, tens of billions of dollars, you know, up to $100 billion, you know, by 12 months from now as well. So, you know, these are the two biggest opportunities for the next year. And that's the only place I'm focused on right now.
And do you plan, I guess, on a potential, call it rune token for any of your projects, like for like Pizza Ninjas as an example?
I would say I can't give the alpha out. That's what I would say. And you know, when I do, you guys will know.
Got it.
Trevor, for people who do have their nodes set up but who are not in the Pizza Ninja Discord, are there any general things that you could tell them to prepare or how they might be best spending their time leading up to root?
I would say make sure that you've used Signet and that you've actually tested things out. Like until you've actually minted and etched on Signet, you're not ready, right? So get there as fast as you can. Try to get there as early as you can, so you have other time to like take a step back, reflect, brainstorm game theory, talk to as many friends as you can, listen to, you know, interviews with Casey or, you know, other people talking about runes. Um, Start to build a list of different things, you know, get into different discords. Like if you were to spend 24/7 just focus on runes, like starting right now, like there's not enough time to do everything. But the number one priority is etching and minting on Signet. Because then if you've done it a couple times, you feel comfortable with it, split your UTXOs, and then you'll at least be, you know, at the poker table with everybody else when Runes goes live.
Appreciate it. WAP, I'm going to try to consolidate any leftover questions we might have from our chat, but feel free to ask Trevor while we got him any questions that are top.
Yeah, I would say go ahead, go for it. I don't. Do you have any? I guess before we close with some additional questions, any final thoughts from you, Trevor, as far as preparation? Like how are you preparing? That sort of thing.
Yeah, you know, I'm juggling two things, which is making sure all the ninjas are prepared as possible, and then preparing myself. So you guys are probably in even a better position than me, even though I've been like living and breathing this stuff for months on end. But I would say you're all in good hands here in Metaverse HQ. Some of the smartest traders in the space are here. I would probably wager say the smartest traders in the space are here. And, you know, even though, you know, a lot of people are new to ordinals, I think people in Metaverse HQ are very smart and quick to study and catch up. And I think you're surrounding yourselves with the right people. And so, yeah, like go for it. Like this is going to be an awesome opportunity, an awesome event. I hope everybody makes it big. Um, and I hope I helped you, you know, in some way that helps you make it big. So, you know, good luck to everybody, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Trevor. Really do appreciate it. And once again, guys, you know, can't stress enough just as being a Pizza Ninja, it's a great place to be. So definitely if you're looking for another Discord to join that has alpha, they're very ordinals focused. And I can't imagine the alpha going away even after runes come out. Really looking forward to, you know, chatting with fellow Pizza Ninjas during Runestones, just navigating that space. So if you do have the bankroll and are able to get one, would definitely recommend it. But Trevor, as always, man, thank you so much for just showing up, being here for your MVHQ fam. I know you're slammed and super busy this week, so it means a lot you can come and talk to us.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Awesome. All right. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also, don't forget to catch Trevor on his daily Ordinal show too. There's a lot of alpha dropped in there as well. And Trevor, once again, thanks a lot for joining us for this space.
A pleasure. Here's everybody.
Cheers, cheers. Alrighty, y'all. So Trevor has left the chat, but we are still here for a little bit. We can hang out, ask some questions. Yeah, want to make sure we got some insights there. Just wanted to be mindful of Trevor's time since he only had about an hour to come and speak to us. But are there any lingering questions that you might have top of mind just about runestones after we had Trevor on and you heard him give his thoughts on?
Just so many takeaways, I would say. So I mean, like we could field some questions, and if not, I mean, we could probably summarize some of the key takeaways, I think.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Waf, where's your head at after hearing Trevor? Was there anything that really stood out to you in terms of what he's been talking?
He confirmed a lot of things that I was original thinking, but the one thing that I may be changing my mind on, or kind of thinking about a little bit deeper now, is the pre runes. And it was a good question that Jinzo brought up. Um, it could be potentially just some lazy development, and maybe these things are not as cracked up as what we think they are. So I think that's one of the things I'm taking away as like a thought to ponder on my exposure to pre-runes. I mean, there are some big projects I'm exposed to, so the risk is not as great, I think, with them. But those second tier, third tier, fourth tier pre-runes projects, and they seem to be coming out like every day now. Maybe it's best to stay away from those. But I think as far as being agile and adaptable to the situations as they unfold when Rune comes out, I think Trevor like just basically hit the nail on the head on that one. That you just gotta you can't have any preconceived notions. You just gotta be ready to kind of roll with the punches on that one.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. And discography, I'm going to pull up that YouTube video for you that I think will get you started for runes. Any pre-runes Zoro's asking that we think would do best, I think Arsic is probably going to do the best of anything. The reason I say that is because they have different rarities to the Arsic runes themselves. This is the actual ordinal, but we haven't seen those rarities come into play in terms of mining. So if they haven't come into play yet, why have different rarities? It definitely implies that there's going to be something that happens after the halving. So I would say that's probably the best. But honestly, after just hearing Trevor's thoughts on everything, I'm probably going to be looking to sell all pre-runes. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, we are 5 days away. A lot of it is going to be contingent on them airdropping. At that point, if they don't get it out fast enough, what is it even going to be worth? So I think there's just so many like question marks around that that I'd probably be looking to offload some of that. And, I talked about this prior, but I would really be looking at your ordinal bags at this point and saying, what is going to happen in the next few months? And I'd have to imagine that a lot of people are going to be selling to get liquidity for runestones. You're going to have very high sats, high gas fees. So it would make sense to me that even the top collections are going to take a little bit of a pullback just because the market as a whole is going to be selling off. Notably, I would say anything that is like in that 0.03 or below camp, gas could get to be 0.01 Bitcoin. If it happens to get that high, people are probably not going to be spending an extra 0.01 Bitcoin for sub 0.03 or 0.05 collections. So when that happens, I would imagine a lot of people start selling off. A lot of people who might not realize that that's kind of the mechanic at hand are going to be paper handing. And then that can cause network effects down the line where you just see mass selling of ordinals. Could be a great opportunity. But just letting you know, I think that's a big.
I think we got a couple more questions here in chat, Ross. Just trying to scroll through them. I mean, Cook asked thoughts on runestones at this point. I guess Ross, you kind of answered that one already.
What's up, fellas?
What's up?
Hey, I had first of all, great job, great interview with To. So that went really well. I've learned a lot. I've been jotting down notes here, trying to get ready. You guys talked briefly about it. You asked about the first 10 runes that Casey's gonna be inscribing. I'm curious how much you guys know in terms of like how that's gonna work. Is he gonna like do them all in the first block? Or like how is he like guaranteeing that he gets the first 10? I realize he's like the founder of Ordinals, so but I don't really know like from a technical perspective like how that works.
So he's going to like hard code it into the code. So that's how he's going to be able to guarantee that he gets the first 10. So if he wanted the first 100, he could do the same exact thing, right? But that's how he's going to guarantee that he gets it, because he's the one deploying runes, the protocol, and he's just going to have those 10 coins hard coded.
So he's deploying the protocol, and does he like already have it deployed? And it just goes live automatically once the happening happens, or is there going to be like blocks after it happens?
No, it's going to be on. It's going to be on that exact block. So block number 840,000 is when the rune protocol will be deployed.
Okay.
Yeah, and to Trevor's point, so in the existing GitHub for Ord, it looks like Casey has not hard coded that. So if he is going to hard code it, he would have to release an update for Ord. So people who have nodes already running, when you're at the part where you're setting up your Ord wallet, that means that you might have to re-index it, because it would leave us to believe that he's probably going to hard code it. No shade at Casey, but he definitely has some ego on him. So like I've heard him specifically say in interviews that he plans on minting out the first 10. Maybe his tune has changed. Maybe he has a relationship with a miner where he's not worried about it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he has the first 10. Rune 0 is called Uncommon Goods, and that's an open edition mint for 4 years. So you don't have to worry about that. It's not worth you spending money or gas trying to get Uncommon Goods. But if you go to Casey's Twitter, you can see that he's dropped a list of potential names of projects he's planning on dropping as the first 10. So, you can look into that and get a better understanding of some of the names that we might see early on, and then see what's best there. Also, to answer your question, Chelsea, how do we think MVHQ is going to be ready to share plays? We will be here. Everyone's going to be glued to the Ordinals chat. We'll have a separate runes channel set up, I'd have to imagine. Llama, I don't see him, but yeah, I'm imagining we'll have a separate runes channel specifically set up for this. If not, we can merge it with shitcoin chat for the day. We'll figure that out as MVHQ staff, but I promise you there will be a thread for it, and I think this could be the return of VC. I'm personally going to be in VC chat and chatting with other people who are going to be using it, because I think that's like the perfect time when we need it, and it is very reminiscent of old school days. So I mean, Jake and Jinzo are on here. I'm sure they can commit that we'll be in VC, and I mean it's always open to use. You never have to ask permission or anything like that. You can hop in VC at any point in time and use.
Oh yeah, VC's gonna be humming.
Yeah, it's gonna be humming. Collectively, I think we're like awesome as a unit. And to Trevor's point, like we're probably one of the most prepared groups out there. We'll have eyes on everything between we got like 50 people in chat right now as an example. We'll be able to sort it out and figure it out. As it happens live.
Yeah. Another takeaway I had from hearing Trevor talk is his mention of Mitch's shout out just in general of like buying the bottom, selling the top. There's so many different opportunities to be making within runes. I think having liquidity available, definitely some spraying and praying involved if you're claiming early on. But like if something is now in the 100,000th rune stone that's been launched and it's minting out, that probably means that it's got some good meme power. And luckily you can very easily see on sites like Unisat, just in terms of inscriptions, which percentage of a wallet owns the supply. So as long as that's evenly distributed, should be a pretty decent bet. Again, a lot of these runestones are free to claim, so there's not so much risk involved. But also, just knowing if it's a first 10 or first 100 runestone, just see how the price action looks, right? If you're looking at the chart and it's going vertically up, it's probably not the best idea to buy it. Like, yeah, it might run a little bit higher. Maybe you miss out. But usually if you're looking at a price chart that's already curled vertically up, at most it maybe has like a 3 to 5x. I know that sounds crazy, but like even if it keeps running, you're not going to miss 100x most of the time from there. Rare instances, yes. I would say most of the time it pulls back before that happens. So if you're seeing a chart and you're like, fuck, this is a good runestone, just put it on your watch list, wait for a little pullback. You can still get in and play it after the fact. So, if you don't have the node set up, if you're worried about runes, if you're worried about missing it, like, it's all right. Take a deep breath. We're all here. We'll be in voice chat, and we'll find good buy ups together. I promise you that.
So Ross or WAF, I know this is a little late in the call for this, and we probably should have covered it way sooner, but I still get DMs every day about this, and even I don't know how to 100% accurately answer. Can you give a clear and like a precise reason for why people are making nodes, what it does, and what it's going to allow you to do different than if you didn't have a node? Because a lot of people are doing it, they don't know why they're doing it, and they're still confused on it. And even me, I wouldn't be able to answer the full question.
Well, it's really mostly because these third-party tools might not be available and ready when Runes goes live. So those few hours, which are so critical, right? If you want to be in on the first block or the first 100 or the sub 1000s and et cetera, et cetera. If you're relying on Magic Eden to etch or mint, and with that traffic that's going to be there, it's just probably not going to happen. So realistically, the only way you're going to get transactions through is through having your own node, especially in those first few hours after the halving.
So essentially, a node is allowing you to communicate with the blockchain, with the mempool, without having to go through any other service. Basically, your node is the service, correct?
Correct.
Good, awesome.
Chelsea's point, like a node is kind of like minting from the contract, like from ETH in the old days. It's probably like a great comparison.
Yeah, that's good. You completed the little info I was missing. I knew most of it, but then I get questions and like people ask me, is it worth doing? Like it really depends on what your investment is like. You're looking at like a $400 investment maybe for something that maybe if you don't have the liquidity for is not worth it. You should just wait it out and see,
Yeah, so I think for like ordinals, you had like an OTC market for quite a while before these marketplaces went live. I think here we're not going to see the same thing, but you're just going to miss out on those first, I don't know, 6 to 12 hours or whatever the case may be, which can be critical. I mean, Trevor mentioned like there's going to be people making 8 figures on this, 9 figures, so it's a huge opportunity there, and just being able to mint what you can. And he said he had like a spray and pray strategy. I think that's gonna probably be pretty equivalent to what we do. You could mint. There's like if you can mint the first 10 runes, the first 100, and 2, 3 get listed on Binance. Like that's probably all you need. Just maybe even just one, right? So and all you're paying are SAT fees in order to mint. So I think the upside of running your own node far exceed the downside.
Hey guys, couple quick questions. Is so for nodes or for runes, is it going to be the same as BRC20 where no one can have the same ticker? You can't have like multiple like collections of the same ticker.
Yeah,
Just
it's one. So I think that definitely raises some questions. I was talking to Lizard Capital about this earlier. I spoke to Trevor during the call and asked him. I think it's going to just be we'll see what happens. But notably, there are some memes relating to Bitcoin. So Magic Internet Money is the big one that I know of. But there's other things that you have to think about where Leonidas is promising to airdrop runestones, whatever you got from holding your token, to his holders. But in terms of it actually being called Runestone or Leonidas's Runestone, if someone takes that name, that's it. And then same thing with RSIC. It can't be called RSIC. Just as right now, a runestone has to be 13 characters long. That's going to be shortened after a certain number of blocks have passed. But for the first, few weeks of this stuff, you're only able to have 13 character runestones. And it's not like on Solana where there can be 10 different projects called Pepe. So you're going to see 13 characters, and once it's gone, it's gone. So I'm not really sure what the dynamic is of the person who runs Magic Internet Money. They're supposed to be airdropping it to people who hold Bitcoin Wizards. So that collection currently has a floor of over 0.2 Bitcoin right now. I don't know what happens if that guy doesn't get it and someone else etches that runestone. He can no longer do the exact picker. He could have variations of how he spaces it out, right? Like a lot of people are separating spaces with dots. That might be the default way to separate it, but like maybe there's a dot between, inter and net versus not having it. So I'm not sure what the dynamic is, but it's something to be aware of, that it's one per ticker and you're not going to see duplicates.
Okay. And is it also going to be like BRC20 where when someone is like claiming that first ticker, they are also going to specify the size of the collection and also like how many you can mint per transaction?
Yep, exactly. So they're going to specify the total supply, the amount claimable per transaction, and there might be a limit on how many you can claim per wallet. So 3 claims, 1 claim, etc.
So like once someone claims a certain ticker, right? Or so like these first 10, for instance, like that Casey's doing, like to be able to mint more of that same collection, can you do that like yourself through your node, or is that you're gonna have to use like some like third party service? Like what's the Uniset, like the BRC21 that's really popular? You guys know like how that's gonna go down?
So that's basically, think of it like an NFT collection as we know now, right? So if it was an art blocks collection and there was a 10,000 supply, you could mint directly off of contract. Maybe you could mint from the art blocks website, but once those 10,000 are minted out, you're only going to be able to buy it off of secondary. And you can also, think of it as just like a coin on Solana where there's a fully distributed supply. So before the runes themselves get minted, let's just go back. When you're making a runestone, you're etching it. So the person who's deploying it, and when you heard Trevor talking about it, etching refers to actually inscribing this data on the blockchain and making those decisions of what is this runestone called, what is the supply, how many people can claim it. So then if you are minting, you are claiming that runestone that they etched. So if it's a 1 million supply and each person is able to claim 1,000 of them, after, there's 1,000 bundles of 1,000 or whatever, and all 1 million are minted, that's it. At that point, you have to go to secondary to buy them. You're not going to be able to mint more once it's reached its supply cap.
Okay. And you'll be able to do that like if you're running your own node, for instance, you'll be able to etch those other people's I guess like tickers that they had already created if there is supply left.
Yeah. So etching is different from minting. So like etching is just setting up the infrastructure to allow someone to claim it. So etching it, you could set it up where you get a portion of the supply off the bat if that's how you wanted to set it up. But actually etching it just allows people to set it up. So think of like if someone, created a shitcoin on Solana and the dev held like 10% of the supply, but then the rest of it is available for people through liquidity pools. So in this instance, it's like, okay, you deploy your rune and you make 1 million runestones available. That is the etching part, is just announcing this is ready. You're opening up the mint. Then it's up to you to mint it out. But you wouldn't be like etching, because etching is like creating the actual runestone. You're just claiming something that already exists. And then once the claim is run out, you can only buy that on secondary because there's no more to be minted.
Okay. So I guess
Yeah,
I'm
and
trying
also
to figure out like how do you claim? Like how do people claim someone else's ticker that they had already like created if it's not minted out yet?
I was saying, once you etch, I think once they deploy it, then it's mintable. But if say like they etch something, and if I'm wrong, Ross, correct me. And what if they etch something, but they're not going to deploy it until later? So like to Trevor's point, he mentioned like if there's like a VC, they just want to get in on something early for like Providence, but then they're not ready to actually deploy it. They could etch something, and then later on, it could be deployed and then be mintable by then. Sort of like you see some of these inscriptions for ordinals, like they were inscribed really early, but then the mint didn't really happen till much later. It's like a similar type of comparison where they can etch sort of like, call it the parent inscription for a particular token, but then it won't be minted or deployed until later. So I think as long as they have it deployed, then you're able to mint. And I don't really know the exact terminology. I'm using the word deploy. And Ross, you could correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not how it is.
No, you're 100% right there, WAP. So, I think most people who are etching, they're probably going to take it live. But yeah, if someone wanted to reserve a ticker and sit on it, they're able to do that. So they could basically just reserve the name and all of those. There is, if you want to go a level deeper, just stuff to look out for where there's a type of runestone that is just like fucked, essentially. Sorry for the French there, but if you set it up so that it doesn't divide evenly, it will just destroy the collection. So a good example is, let's say you launched a runestone and there was a supply of 10, but for whatever reason you set the claimable supply at 3. So 3 can get claimed, but that one last one can never be claimed. Like all of the runestones in that batch are essentially just like defunct, and you can't use them for anything. So I forget, there's like a specific term for a runestone that isn't actually functional and just has that error with it. But just be mindful of that when you're looking at runestones that are available. Just make sure the supply is actually divisible by the claim amount, because you would just be wasting money if you're trying to claim the ones that don't divide.
Where you know? Sorry, I was just gonna ask. Where do you know where we would go to like look at the ones that are claimable?
Yeah, so you would be looking on Ord for, if you're running a node. So you would look on Ord to actually take a look, and this is where Trevor was saying to play around on Signet. So Signet is just the test net where you can see runes that are already out there. And just give me 1 second. Oh, there you go. It looks like WAF is setting up Ord scan. Oh, that's the countdown. Yeah, give me 1 second, Jake, while I pull this for you. It'll just be a link to give you an example of what they look like. Sorry, just give me 1 second to pull this link, but I can then give you a better understanding of what runes look like once we get that.
No problem.
Okay, I have it right here. So let me drop this in chat, and I will also share my screen once again for everybody to take a look at. Okay, so if you're looking at my screen here, this is the ordinal signet. If you're running Ord from your wallet, or you're setting up an Ord wallet on nodes, this is basically what you're going to be able to see once you go live. So this is once again a test net. These are not actual runes at this point, but what you'll see, and again, this is a test net, so the rules don't all apply. You're not going to be seeing any runes that are less than 13 characters. So again, you're not going to be seeing stuff like BTC, GG, or Greg. Too short. You'll see the spacing mechanic is like we talked about. There's little dots in between. So let's say, we're looking at United States dollar. Okay. So you're going to click into that rune. And again, this is what the real thing would look like. It's going to tell you what the rune number is. So like we talked about, the first 10, the first 100, the first 10,000 are going to be a big premium on them. So you'll have a timestamp, you'll have the number, and here you'll see the cap and then the remaining. So you'll see here that 31 people minted this out. It looks like there's a total supply of 20,000. Of those remaining, there's 19,969. And then, you'll be able to see in terms of the divisibility, it looks like it's 0. I believe for divisibility, that refers to what is the lowest common denominator. So that's where I mentioned that you're going to want to find stuff that like is actually able to divide properly. This one might be one of those defunct runes because it's saying 0. I think you want something where it's like able to divide in equal amounts, and maybe you know a little bit more about that, WAF. That's still something that I'm looking into, but it looks like if it's 1969, that might be not fully divisible down all the way evenly. So let's take a look at another one, just see if it's a little bit more clear. And if anyone knows, please feel free to drop in because I want to make sure. But yeah, you can see different supplies. Damn, these are all like wrong divisibilities. Sorry, y'all. Let's try one more thing here. Look at Bigfoot is real. Awesome. Cap is 420. I don't think the information's there. I'm gonna have to learn more for it, Jake, but it's gonna look like this. I'll have to do some more research on Ord. I just got to the step last night, so I haven't dug too fully deep into it. I just know that there is something with the visibility that's important. But this is what the runes are going to look like on mint day. You'll just be able to go to a site. It's going to be ordinals, but it's going to be in the live environment. You'll see all the different runestones as they're coming out. You'll see the supply that's available, and then you'll basically take the ticker symbol, put it into your command prompt, set your fee, and then mint it out.
Awesome. This is what I was looking for. Thank you. That's super helpful. And why is it that there's only like 13 characters? Is it 13 characters exactly, or 13 characters or more that it has to be?
13 or more.
Is it?
It could
Is that
be
just
15.
save some? or something? Like save the good
Casey-
ticker.
That is
Yeah, Casey doesn't want
Go
all
ahead.
the good tickers, I guess, deployed immediately by just anybody. So he's kind of making it a slow rollout. So over time, the amount of letters will decrease to eventually get to the year 4 letter tickers. I guess after I want to say about 4 or 5 months.
Okay, sweet.
cool. I think that's it for me, Waf, unless we have any questions from the audience. But yeah, definitely runes are going to look like that on Signet. Apologies, I didn't have time to, test it around more. I'll definitely be doing research as well as lots of other MVHQ members. So if there's anything that I can, leave with saying, it's that just keep doing research on runes. Definitely be prepared and get your wallet set up ahead of time. If you're not going to be running a node, that's totally fine. Still get some Bitcoin prepared. Just, whatever liquidity you're willing to spend, I would just set aside now a pre-designated amount of, I'm going to, do $1,000 in runes, 5,000, however much you're going to do. Just set it aside for runes. And to Trevor's point, a lot of it is going to be spray and pray. This is like, we see it with every cycle. Maybe Jinzo could speak on this. If you're early to something, there is a really large chance that you can make a lot just from one project. I remember, back in early ETH days, it was just a matter of being in an NFT. And it seemed like at every single point in the cycle, one of those popped off. So this is going to be slightly different because there's going to be hundreds and thousands of these projects. But if you can get into the good tickers and identify them early, if it's like the first 13 letter meme that's just really hitting and has a lot of prevalence, if it's one of the first 10 or 100 runes and you buy it very quickly on secondary or get a big dip, there's a lot of chance for wealth generation if you're just here and participating early. And anyone who's been around in ordinals can tell you that, right? Like Jinzo got me into ordinals early. I was buying puppets at 0.03 when people thought that was late and they 10x from there, right? Like look at every collection on ordinals. It's gone crazy over the past few months, even though we have members like Sola who have been here since sub 10K when ordinals first came out. Like you're here day one of runes. You have a better shot than 90% of the field just from being there. So, take this seriously if you're going to trade it. Take advantage of the opportunity. It's a big event. Even if you don't have a node, you can still make a lot of money and profit off of it. Just come prepared and be ready to fight. Like we're all traders and we're going to have to compete, but it should work out. So I hope you guys are excited. Waf, any final takeaways, words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would just say, like, I remember when Ordinals and BRCs first came out, I kind of felt like I was late, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I was still early. So even if you're having a little bit of trouble setting up your node, I would say don't give up, because you might think you're late, but you're actually still pretty early.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you get involved as long as you get involved. Play however you feel it. Don't overextend yourself, but just be involved. All of us, the mistake we made was putting off ordinals for as long as we did, and I just started getting into it slowly and like started with a small portfolio and decided to grow from there. I mean, I think you could do the same with runes. We're going to be ahead of the curve because we're prepared. For every person that's prepared, there's probably 50 that aren't. So just take advantage of the moment. Don't have to kill yourself. Just make sure make sure you're involved and go from there. Like just be prepared and get involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jinzo. Thank you so much, Waf. Really appreciate it, man. Big shout out to Trevor once again. Trevor's a member too, as well, guys. So you can definitely throw him some blesses as well. It's seriously dope that he was able to talk to us, considering how busy he's been. But yeah, we're here, guys, and one final thing, and all of MVHQ staff is gonna stamp this one, but use VC this next week, guys. Like we obviously have the happy hours that we've been doing where you can pop in and use VC, but it really is just a matter of like, if people see that there's people in there, they're more likely to join. So if you're sitting around, even if you're the only person and there's no one in VC, like feel free to pop in, just mute your mic, hang out for a little bit. You get a really good opportunity to meet other members when they are the small circles. And when there's larger portions going on or larger amounts of people in there, it is truly the greatest alpha chat I've ever witnessed. For all of our new members who haven't seen us back in like the 2021, 2022 days, was fucking sick. And we're gonna.
I think Ross got got rugged there, but to his point, yeah, I mean, VC chat is where it's at during the bull market, and you could see it heating up, and I think it's coming back. Looking forward to being in the chat with you guys pretty much like every day from here on out, because this is the time to get it. Yeah, Ross is drugged. We know. I think we're all wrapped up. I don't know if Jake, if you got any last final thoughts. You could close it out for us, and we'll officially end the BossDawgs show now. But we can continue to stay in VC and hang out, as usual.
I don't want to steal your guys' show, but bullish runes. Get prepared now.
Yeah, I agree. All right. On that note, I'm gonna head out for a little bit. But if you guys are still vibing